Hey everybody, welcome back to Havoc Maker Studio. My name is John, and I'm hoping you guys had a great weekend. It's almost over, but hopefully you guys are getting last minute gaming or hobbying, laundry, whatever you need to get done before the week starts. So this episode, we're not going to be chatting about a certain controversial subject. Things have died down a bit. We're going to definitely keep our eye on the ball, so to speak. The last little bit of people that are just kind of getting caught up on reporting on this are doing so, which is good. Make sure you give them a like and subscribe as well. Make sure before you do that, you hit that subscribe button here before you bounce out. Now, is the controversy with a certain company in the UK over? No, it's not done yet, but we're kind of in a holding pattern waiting for some piece of legit news to come out. I don't think it's going to go the way we want. I think it's going to be something related to another product that's going to drop, and we're going to pounce on that. But it's I don't think the other female version of the controversy is going to get touched on for quite some time. I think we're going to go probably a month, where I think everybody's in a holding pattern until probably the end of May, eyeballing the price drops, the people boycotting and whatnot. So moving on to happier news. Over at Free League Publishing, it's a company out of Sweden, primarily an RPG company. They produce, or they're working alongside like the creators of Morkborg and Pirate Borg and Cyberborg and soon to be Brimstone and Gunpowder. Really, if you want some really easy game system to dive into and just have some fun with you and your friends, just over the top action, any of those Morkborg related games is really ideal. It's not going to be your forever probably not going to be your forever RPG. And these days, is it really a forever RPG that people are sticking to? The way that Games Workshop, geez, I think the way that Hasbro is handling things in their D&D, they've really kind of ruined the whole forever RPG experience for pretty much everybody, because now everybody's just kind of scattered to their company of choice or brand of choice, but even then they bounce around. It's interesting to see how that is. I mean, if you're playing any sort of RPG, have you found your forever RPG, or are you still just kind of playing fly by night, whatever comes along? You're like, oh, that looks interesting, let's do that. Let me know down in the comments. At any rate, circling back around to Free League Publishing, they do some amazing games besides the Borg versions. The Symbaroum is, I think, how it's actually pronounced. One of the most amazing dark fantasy games out there. That's unlike D&D or Pathfinder, which is very player friendly, and it's like they don't want your characters to be in really any sort of risky situation. You get all those lovely death saves and all that stuff. Symbaroum is a little bit more cold-hearted. It's not quite the level of Dark Souls, but it's close, right? It's like Dark Souls light, where I would compare, if I was comparing Dungeons and Dragons to Symbaroum. Dungeons and Dragons is more like My Little Pony's Tales of Equestria. In like the seriousness of it, the lethality. That makes sense. If I offended you, oh well, what am I going to do? That's just my personal opinion. If Dungeons and Dragons is your go-to, your jam, then just ignore me on that one. So they also produce, so I can get through this, the Aliens RPG, one of the probably the closest scary to being a scary game in an RPG sense out there than I think anybody's has ever accomplished. We have the Blade Runner RPG, of course, Mutant Year Zero. If you've seen the TV show on Amazon, or if you didn't know about it, there's the Tales from the Loop RPG, all which was based off of an art book, actually, if you didn't know that. And they've got a few other really good ones like Twilight 2000. So a good assortment of fantasy, modern day, post-apocalyptic, sci-fi. They've got a good round genre of all these different whatever it is that you might be looking for. So focusing on the point of this video is November of 2022, yes. They had these Mutant Year Zero Zone Wars, which, if you're not familiar with Mutant Year Zero, it is a post-apocalyptic game that's centered around people having mutations. I don't think there's like really true humans, though I think now you might be able to play a true human, but it's the world has gone through some major changes. Basically, I'm not saying bring the ninjas into it, but the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles into kind of a post-apocalypse setting. That's pretty close. Now, that started off as an RPG, and that helped create the Mutant Year Zero, or the Year Zero engine that they base most of their games off. Symborum being one of the exceptions. Then I can't remember the name of the publishing company, but they made a video game called Mutant Year Zero: The Road to Eden. It's kind of a top-down view. If you've ever played XCOM or Wasteland, any of the new Wastelands or old Wastelands, is that top-down view where you kind of move your characters around and engage in all sorts of things, combat and subterfuge and sabotage, whatnot. So the game is pretty well established in regards to a solid, award-winning tabletop RPG. It's got a good, solid video game, and now the point we're getting to is a tabletop skirmish game. So in November of 2022, they went live with a Kickstarter, and that Kickstarter was fairly successful. They wanted 250,000 Swedish krona. I'm not sure what the ratio is, but anyways, they came out with like 1.7 million krona, almost 1.8, which is around 170. I want to say close to 170,000 approximately, or I'm sorry, about 100. Let me dial that back because I have to drop that percentage. About $156,000, which overall is very successful. Especially when they got, they were asking for a sixth of that. I think that's a sixth. Yeah, that sounds about right. Put it down there if I got my math wrong, but a sixth sounds about right. So about 15% ish. Anyways, so very successful in regards to what they were looking for. Now, that aside, who's working on the game? We have Andy Chambers, who is a former Games Workshop designer. He worked on Necromunda, Battlefleet Gothic, some Warhammer Fantasy Battle. I want to say he was dipped his toes into Mordheim, but he was one of the better creators coming out of Games Workshop. He's not Matt Ward, so you guys can relax. The other gentleman that's working on it from Free League Publishing is Tomas. I think that's how you say it. Tomas Harnstern. I'm going to butcher that name, and I apologize for that. At any rate, he's the one that created, or not created, but has worked on Mutant Year Zero. He might have created it. The Aliens RPG franchise, Blade Runner, and whatnot. So a lot of development, a lot of good people have actually been working on it. Now, this skirmish game is anywhere up to 4 players. I think you still need 2 players. It's not like games like coming out of Osprey Press where you can just be a one-player person and go in against an AI. It looks like you do need 2 players, up to 4, and everything is 32 millimeter scale. And we're going to take a look at the boxes that are going up for pre-order really soon, since that release is right around the corner. Basically a month and a few days away. So it's pretty exciting, especially if you like Free League Publishing or Mutant Year Zero or somewhere along the lines. I'm kind of a Free League Publishing stan, if you will. If I could ship myself with them, I probably would. Anyways, the product's coming out. They got some pretty amazing looking miniatures. We'll take a little bit closer look as we dive through this. This is not a Games Workshop or Warhammer 40,000 breaker. I think the only company out there, real quick, that had the possibility of toppling Games Workshop from the top dog, top spot would have been Privateer Press with War Machine or Hordes, or Warma Hordes, if you will. But the part of the fandom and part, mainly a small part, the larger part was the internal going on at Privateer Press that just ruined everything for that brand. It gave it such a black eye. Nobody wants to touch it. So this game is not going to topple it, but if you're looking for just a break from the Games Workshop stuff, and you just want a little side game that you can just have some fun, you don't have to be totally serious. You still can go back and play your favorite games, but sometimes you need a break. And games like this, these small skirmish games like Zone Wars from Mutant Year Zero, have the potential to give you some new insights on how you might play your forever game, right? So just something to consider when it comes out. And I'm sure these are going to be reasonably priced. We'll take a look at the pricing and judge from there. Anyways, the miniatures look good. There are some gameplay videos. They actually have and I'll put a link for this in the description below. If I remember correctly, on the Kickstarter page, they have a link on here. We're scrolling through to take a look and checking out the miniatures as we go. I think there's a link that will take you to a kind of a playtest guide where if you want, you can print off some paper characters, but most of us probably have some miniatures on hand that we can just kind of substitute in. So they've got the first expansion that came out, or the base game has you going up against, well, actually, we'll take a look at that here in a second. Let's actually jump over. So Zone Wars core set, that way we don't have to keep talking about it. 698 krona. I'm not going to try to figure this out. 698 sec to US. Let's just look at this together. $64. So they'll probably just round it up to 65. I'm betting here in the US, unless I can change my dollars. Oh, I can change my dollars. Here we go. I knew we'd get there at some point. So 60, it's such a weird number, $66.62. It'd be interesting to see what the MSRP here in the US will be. At any rate, everything's up for pre-order right now. And the first box that you get, I know it's one side is Gen Lab and the other one I think is Arc Mutants. They're the two different groups that you can go up against. But right outside the gate, let's see if I got a better image here. Right outside the gate, this game is ready to play, except maybe punching out some of the little tokens. But you don't have to assemble the miniatures. Everything's ready to go. You might have to assemble this cardstock buildings, I really don't care about the cardstock. I think a lot of people have terrain, or you have a store that you go to. And if you don't, hey, you get some snazzy, cheap cardstock terrain to use just for this game, just to have some fun. But you get the two factions, like I said, the Arc Mutants and the Gen Lab Mutants. The Arc Mutants are a little bit closer to humans that have mutated in some fashion, where the Gen Lab mutants are more animal than human. They're like not arthropods, Theranthropes in a sense. I think that's the correct terminology. So anyways, so that game's this initial box, it's $66, gives you everything you need to play. So you get 10 miniatures, playing cards, tokens, custom dice, a 3x3 mat, 3 full sheets of cardboard terrain, measuring ruler, and rule book. Now, what is kind of interesting in regards to this game in itself, before we dive any further, if you are a fan of the Mutant Year Zero RPG, there is, if I've read correctly, and I'm still waiting to get my press kit from them, that this game you can translate back and forth. So if you've got some of your favorite characters in your tabletop RPG, there's a way to transition them over into the tabletop version and back and forth. So that I think is an extra added little benefit, especially if you're already a fan of it, or if you end up liking this game, you're like, man, I really want to have a customized character for this. I really want to get involved with this. So I'm going to play the RPG with my friends, and we're going to have this tabletop game. There might even be a way to combine the two to where you're doing your battles on the tabletop here. I mean, really like roughly real-time visual combat wise versus using your mind palace or your imagination to do so. I'm sure that there's a way. We're going to get this game, and we'll probably do a couple run-through videos in the near future. Now, besides this core set, also releasing alongside it on the same date is the Robots and Psionics. Now, this box is very similar to the previous one, except you are required to have the core box to use this. This is not a core set. This is not a standalone set. Now, this will come with a variety of things, some more terrain, yay, 10 more miniatures, tons of new tokens and cards, and some rules to include for robots and psychics, and of course the dice mechanics. So you are going to get a lot more to add into it. You definitely need that core game, which makes this even more expandable. And this is where you're going to be able to definitely play 4 players. Now, depending on the success of the post Kickstarter, we might see additional factions come out, because there's a lot going on with the Mutant Year Zero RPG, which makes me think it might be time to do another full review, if you will, or maybe an in-depth review of the Mutant Year Zero RPG, and kind of give a breakdown, maybe even a couple breakdown videos before. I've done that with Symborum. This is kind of a fun RPG. It's easy to get into, easy to use. You only need D6s, or you can buy their custom proprietary well, not proprietary dice, but their custom dice if you want to make things a little bit simpler. But if you're wanting to kind of keep costs down, just use your D6s that you probably have tons of. If you're any sort of tabletop gamer, you have more D6s than probably other dice. At any rate, I think it's definitely a good game to get into, at least on the surface level, because if it's still using a version of the Year Zero engine, the gameplay is going to be pretty fast and furious. And I know we say that about a lot of tabletop miniature games like In Country. We've talked about, we had hoped that Kill Team was going to be fast, and we also hoped that Shatterpoint was going to be a fast game. But I think the only real fast game that we got out of all this, besides In Country, was Marvel Crisis Protocol. That game tends to be pretty fast. I think you can get done in an hour. I think tournaments are like 90 minutes, which I think is just way more time than you need. But if you know how to play the game, you're probably done in an hour, unless you're smoking and joking, and then it kind of dwindles down. At any rate, these miniatures do look good. You'll recognize some of these characters from the video game, the Road to Eden, or at least similar. And I think their terrain sets that they've done are really, really, really good. And if you are playing like the Fallout RPG from Modiphius, the 2D20, or the Wasteland Warfare RPG that you can use the Wasteland Warfare skirmish game miniatures for, if you've got a lot of that terrain there, I mean, you're set. You've got the perfect post-apocalyptic terrain. Who cares if it's a red rocket in a Mutant Year Zero universe? So, or if you got 40K terrain. I mean, these models are 32 millimeters, so it's now about what Games Workshop's aiming for. It used to be 28 millimeter. Now they're pretty much 32. So if you've got the terrain already for any of those games, you're pretty much set. And actually, you can pretty much use any game. So there's a couple Wild West games out there, like Wild West Exodus. I think High Noon is the other one. And if you have those Wild West buildings, you're set, man. You are good to go. So once again, miniatures look really good. They're not like over the top ridiculousness that you usually see. Yes, we've got a duck running around with a jacket or a trench coat and a crossbow, but it's not like decked out in skulls or massive body armor plates. I'm looking at you, Warma Hordes. It's a nice balance, I would say, between Fallout and Fallout. I would say it's close to Fallout level stuff, maybe a little bit better. At any rate, I think this game's going to do fairly well. I think especially if you get it in stores, kind of like Moonstone. If you got Moonstone at your local stores, you probably had a huge spike in participation and buying. The stores probably having a hard time selling it. I know every store that I've been to that has picked up Moonstone and sold it in store, they have a hard time keeping it on the shelf. Usually one or two items are left by the time or usually a week or two prior to making another big order. Moonstone is a huge hit, and I know they just completed a Kickstarter not too long ago, or the rewards are going to be coming out soon. So this one I think is going to be another one along those lines. It's odd enough. Visually, I think it looks great visually. I think the miniatures look fairly beautiful in a sense that mutants can look beautiful. They're fairly impressive, and I think the way that the gameplay is described, I think it's going to be a nice, fast, easy game to get into, not overly complicated where we have to crack open a 400-page book that's actually only like 100-page of rules and thumb through it to try to find a rule to figure out what do I do when I'm shooting at somebody in cover? And then you have to read like 3 pages to do that, and then check the index, cross-reference with this flow chart to get to your result. Not saying that it happens in like the Horus Heresy or anything with Games Workshop, but it might. So we're definitely going to cover it. If you are interested in this, put it down below in the comments. I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts on this, especially if you were involved in anything related to Mutant Year Zero. If you've played the RPG or the video game, especially if you played the video game, I would love to know. I've been interested. I love the XCOM series, and that's what that engine is based off of. And I would love to see kind of what the gameplay is like. So at any rate, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Of course, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, thumbs up. You guys know the drill. I'm not gonna drag it on. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and we'll try to be back a little bit later next week, probably with the Mutant Year Zero RPG breakdown, and which might give us some insight on how gameplay is. See you guys later.